The morning sun cast long shadows across the diplomatic quarter when the egg finally cracked. Jacquard pushed through the crystalline shell with small clawed hands, blinking at the bright world. The hatchling's scales shimmered green and gold, still soft from the hatching fluid. Within moments, Jacquard's mind cleared. Memories flooded in, language, numbers, the faces of parents. This was the Scarith way. Hatchlings emerged already knowing, already thinking. Ambassador Tolan approached, towering over the newborn. "You are the youngest of my line by 30 cycles," the ambassador said, voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Your siblings have already chosen their paths. You will study alone until you reach maturity." Jacquard looked around the pristine chamber. Books lined the walls. Star charts glowed on screens. Everything was quiet. Everything was still. The hatchling understood the words perfectly but felt something unnamed stirring inside, something the inherited memories did not explain. Days passed in solitary study. Jacquard learned mathematics, stellar navigation, and diplomatic protocols. The other young Scarith were decades older, already apprenticed to masters across the colony. They had no time for a fresh hatchling. The adult Scarith praised Jacquard's quick learning but did not play. Scarith did not play. They prepared. They studied. They perfected. On the 7th day, Jacquard slipped away during the afternoon rest period. The hatchling's feet carried it toward the neutral zone, the garden area between Scarith and human territories. Exotic plants from both worlds grew there, creating a strange and colorful wilderness. Jacquard had read about gardens but never experienced one. That was when the hatchling heard laughter. The sound was alien and wonderful. Jacquard crept through the bushes, natural camouflage darkening its scales to match the shadows. A small human child ran through the garden, arms spread wide like wings, making strange noises with his mouth. The boy had dark hair and wore bright blue clothing covered in dirt stains. "Zoom! Watch out for the asteroids," the child shouted, diving behind a flowering bush. He held a stick like a weapon, pointing it at invisible enemies. Pew pew pew. Jacquard's inherited memories identified this as a human juvenile, approximately 6 standard years old. But the memories did not explain what the child was doing. It served no purpose. It taught no skills. Yet the boy's face showed pure delight. The child spotted Jacquard and froze. For a long moment they stared at each other. "Whoa," the boy whispered. "You're like a baby dragon." Jacquard tilted its head, processing the words. "I am Scarith, a hatchling, not a dragon. Dragons are mythological creatures from human folklore." The boy's eyes went wide. "You can talk. That's so cool. I'm Tommy. Do you want to play pirates with me?" "Play?" Jacquard repeated the word slowly. The concept existed in the inherited memories, but only as something primitive species did. "I do not understand the function of this activity." Tommy grinned, showing small white teeth. "It doesn't have a function, silly. It's just fun. Come on, we're searching for treasure. You can be the first mate on my ship." He grabbed Jacquard's clawed hand without fear and pulled the hatchling toward a cluster of stones arranged in a circle. Something strange happened inside Jacquard's chest. The inherited memories did not explain this feeling either. Warm and bright, like standing in sunlight. For the next hour, Tommy showed Jacquard his world. They pretended the garden was an ocean. The stones became islands. Sticks became swords. Tommy narrated grand adventures, and Jacquard found itself responding, adding ideas, suggesting directions. When Jacquard used its camouflage to disappear behind a tree, Tommy shrieked with delighted laughter. "That's cheating. But it's awesome cheating," Tommy declared. As the sun began to set, casting orange light through the leaves, Tommy looked at his new friend seriously. "Can you come back tomorrow? My mom and dad work a lot. It gets lonely." Jacquard understood lonely now. "Yes," the hatchling said. "I will return." Walking back to the diplomatic quarter, Jacquard felt different. For the first time since hatching, the quiet halls did not feel peaceful. They felt empty. The hatchling had discovered something the inherited memories never mentioned. That knowledge without joy was just another kind of loneliness. 3 weeks passed like shooting stars. Every afternoon, Jacquard slipped away to the garden where Tommy waited with new games and endless energy. The hatchling discovered that humans measured friendship not in logical exchanges but in shared moments of silliness. Tommy taught hide and seek first. "You count to 20 while I hide," he explained, covering his eyes to demonstrate. Jacquard found him in seconds using enhanced Scarith hearing and scent tracking. Tommy laughed so hard he fell over. Okay, you have to give me a chance. Maybe count slower?" The next round Jacquard hid. Tommy searched for 30 minutes before giving up. The hatchling had climbed straight up a tree trunk using tiny claws and changed scale colors to match the bark perfectly. When Jacquard finally revealed itself, Tommy's jaw dropped. "Dude, you're literally the best at this game ever," Tommy exclaimed. "Can you teach me that color change thing?" "It is biological. Humans lack the specialized cells," Jacquard explained, then paused. "But perhaps you could use camouflage materials? Leaves and mud." Tommy's face lit up. Within minutes, he had covered himself in dirt and branches, looking ridiculous but clearly proud. They played again, and though Jacquard still found him easily, Tommy's creative attempt made the game more interesting. The hatchling realized humans compensated for physical limitations with imagination. Tag became their second favorite game. Tommy was faster in short bursts, but Jacquard had better stamina and could climb surfaces the boy could not. They created new rules constantly. "Okay, this time the trees are safe zones," Tommy would shout. Or, "If you're on one foot you can't be tagged." One afternoon Tommy arrived with a large blanket and wooden poles. "Today we're building a fort," he announced seriously, as if this were an important mission. Jacquard watched as Tommy struggled to make the blanket stand upright. The structure kept collapsing. "This design is structurally unsound," the hatchling observed. "The weight distribution is uneven and you lack proper support anchors." "Well, how would you do it?" Tommy asked, frustrated. Jacquard's mind automatically calculated angles and stress points. Together, they repositioned the poles, secured the corners with rocks, and created a stable shelter. Inside the dim fort, they sat surrounded by Tommy's collection of treasures: smooth stones, colorful leaves, a broken circuit board he had found. "This is our secret base," Tommy whispered, even though no one else was around. "Where we plan our adventures." "Why do you whisper?" Jacquard asked quietly. "Because it makes it feel more special," Tommy replied, grinning. The hatchling did not fully understand but whispered back anyway. "I brought something." Jacquard pulled out a small device with glowing symbols. "This is a Scarith puzzle matrix. It teaches spatial reasoning and mathematical sequences." Tommy's eyes glazed over as Jacquard began explaining the logical solution method. Maybe you just show me?" Jacquard demonstrated the proper sequence, solving the puzzle in 4 moves. Tommy took the device and stared at it. He twisted it randomly, pushed buttons without pattern, and suddenly the matrix chimed. "Solved. In 3 moves." "How did you do that?" Jacquard's crest rose in surprise, the Scarith equivalent of shock. Tommy shrugged. "I dunno. Just felt right? Like this color wanted to be next to that color." Jacquard replayed the sequence in memory. Tommy had not used logic. He had used intuition, pattern recognition that operated below conscious thought. The solution was actually more elegant than the standard method. The hatchling felt something shift in its understanding. Humans approached problems differently, and sometimes their way worked better. As the sun set, Tommy grabbed Jacquard's clawed hand. "You're my best friend," he said simply. "Best friend," Jacquard repeated, testing the words. Scarith had allies, colleagues, family bonds. But friend? The concept felt warm and right. "Yes, best friend." Walking back through the garden, Jacquard noticed Ambassador Cholin standing at the edge of the Scarith territory, watching. The adult's expression was unreadable, but the hatchling felt a chill run down its spine. The games had been noticed. That night, during the evening meal, the ambassador spoke. "Your studies are suffering. Your instructors report distraction. This ends now." Jacquard's scales dimmed with sadness, but the hatchling said nothing. Some things the young Scarith was learning were worth fighting for. Ambassador Ticholin assigned 2 guards to follow Jacquard everywhere. The hatchling sat through extra lessons on trade negotiations and territorial law, but the words felt empty. Every afternoon Jacquard thought about Tommy waiting alone in the garden, wondering where his friend had gone. On the 5th day of separation, everything changed. A human mining team discovered rich mineral deposits in the southern continent. The same deposits the Scarith had claimed 3 months earlier based on ancient survey rights. Both sides demanded ownership. Angry voices filled the diplomatic halls. Ambassador Cholin worked late into the night, scales darkened with stress. The neutral zone garden closed. Barriers went up. Human and Scarith citizens stopped speaking to each other in the markets. The fragile peace that had lasted 5 years began cracking like Jacquard's hatching egg. Tommy's parents arrived at their apartment one evening with packed bags. "We're going to the capital city," his mother explained, kneeling down. "Just for a little while until things calm down. It's safer there." "But what about Jacquard?" Tommy asked, tears forming. "I didn't even get to say goodbye." His father shook his head. The Scarth aren't allowing any contact right now, buddy. I'm sorry. Tommy tried to be brave, but that night he cried into his pillow. In the capital, surrounded by other human children, he refused to play. They did not understand the games he and Jacquard had invented. They did not whisper in blanket forts or solve puzzles in impossible ways. Everything felt wrong without his dragon friend. Meanwhile, Jacquard grew quieter each day. The hatchling completed lessons perfectly but without enthusiasm. Other Scarth noticed nothing wrong. They saw a young one finally behaving properly, focusing on important matters. Only Ambassador Tolan sometimes paused, watching the hatchling with an expression that might have been concern. Late one night, Jacquard could not sleep. The hatchling wandered the diplomatic residence, scales shifting restlessly through different colors. In the ambassador's study, a data pad lay open on the desk, forgotten. Jacquard should not have looked. But something drew the young eyes to the glowing screen. The words made the hatchling's blood run cold. Military vessels. Both human and Scarth warships en route to the colony. Estimated arrival, 12 days. The document outlined evacuation procedures. If conflict erupted, all non-essential personnel would be removed. The colony might be abandoned entirely. Humans would return to Earth. Scarth would return to the homeworld. Light years apart. Forever. Jacquard's claws trembled, nearly dropping the pad. The adults were so focused on old rights and new claims that they could not see what they were destroying. This colony had been built as a promise, that two different species could share a world in peace. Now that promise was dying. The hatchling thought about Tommy, probably sleeping in some strange bed in the capital. Did the human boy know their friendship might end permanently? That they might never play pirates or build forts or solve puzzles again? Jacquard remembered something Tommy had said once, during a game of pretend explorers. The best treasure isn't gold or jewels. It's finding someone who makes you happy. At the time, Jacquard had not fully understood. The inherited memories contained no wisdom about happiness, about the ache of missing someone, about friendship that transcended species. But the hatchling understood now. The adults had forgotten what mattered. They argued over rocks and territory while ignoring the real treasure they had already found. Proof that Scarth and humans could connect, could cooperate, could care about each other. Jacquard and Tommy were living evidence that peace was possible. An idea began forming in the young mind. A dangerous, foolish, absolutely necessary idea. Jacquard crept to the hatchling's room and retrieved the old communication device Tommy had given weeks ago. For emergencies, the boy had said. The hatchling's claws moved across the keys, typing carefully. Tommy. Need your help. Have a plan. Adults won't listen to words. But maybe they will pay attention to actions. Remember our universal game? Time to show them what we learned. Are you brave enough? The response came 30 seconds later. 3 simple words that made Jacquard's heart race. I'm always brave. The Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with tense voices. Ambassador T'Cholin sat on one side with the Scarth delegation, scales rigid and formal. Across the chamber, human representatives argued through translators, faces red with frustration. Security guards lined the walls. Outside, protesters from both species gathered, chanting slogans about justice and rights. Nobody noticed the small figure slip through the ventilation shaft. Jacquard dropped silently onto the main floor, right in the center between both delegations. The room fell instantly quiet. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the hatchling. What is the meaning of this? Ambassador T'Cholin rose, voice sharp with anger and embarrassment. Guards, remove. I challenge everyone here to a game, Jacquard announced, voice clear and loud. The hatchling held up a strange device, glowing with mixed human and Scarth technology. Solve this puzzle. Any adult. If you can complete it, I will leave and never speak again of friendship between our species. The human ambassador leaned forward, confused. A child's game? We're discussing matters of planetary importance. Are you afraid you cannot solve it? Jacquard asked simply. Murmurs rippled through both sides. A Scarth military commander stepped forward, scales flashing irritation. Give me that toy. I will solve it in moments. Jacquard handed over the device. The commander studied it, confident at first. Minutes passed. The confident expression faded. The commander tried mathematical sequences, logical progressions, standard Scarth problem-solving methods. Nothing worked. After 10 minutes, the commander gave up, embarrassed. It's clearly defective, the military leader muttered. Let me try, a human engineer volunteered. She approached with curiosity, turning the device over. She tried creative approaches, random combinations, human intuition. The device remained unsolved. 15 minutes later, she too admitted defeat. At that exact moment, every screen in the assembly hall flickered to life. Tommy's face appeared, broadcasting from the human capital. He sat in front of a camera, holding an identical puzzle device. "Hi everyone," Tommy said, voice nervous but determined. "My name is Tommy Chin. I'm 6 years old. And Jakar is my best friend." Security guards rushed toward the screens, but Ambassador Tcholan raised a hand, stopping them. Something in the elder Scaratha's expression had changed. Curiosity replaced anger. Tommy continued. "This puzzle looks impossible, right? Scarath think one way. Humans think another way. Alone neither can solve it. But together." He held up his device. "Jakar, are you ready?" In the assembly hall, Jakar nodded, scales brightening with hope. "Okay, I'll do my part first," Tommy said. He manipulated his puzzle using pure human intuition, creating what looked like random chaos. Patterns emerged that made no logical sense but somehow felt right. Jakar watched the screen and replicated Tommy's moves. Then the hatchling added Scarath precision, mathematical sequences that built upon Tommy's creative foundation. Back and forth they worked, human imagination and Scarath logic weaving together. Both devices chimed simultaneously. "Solved." The assembly hall erupted in shocked whispers. "Send the puzzle specifications to everyone," Tommy announced through the screen. "Let them try. Human and Scarath teams working together. You'll see what we discovered." Within an hour, the puzzle had spread across the colony's networks. A young Scarath engineer and a human programmer, intrigued by the challenge, teamed up in a public plaza. Crowds gathered to watch. The mixed teams solved it in 8 minutes, their different approaches complementing perfectly. More teams formed spontaneously. The challenge became a phenomenon. People who had been shouting at each other hours before now worked side by side, discovering that cooperation felt better than conflict. In the assembly hall, Ambassador Tcholan approached Jakar slowly. The hatchling braced for punishment. Instead, the ambassador knelt down to eye level, something Scarath elders rarely did. "You have shown me something I forgot," Tcholan said quietly. "That efficiency without joy is emptiness. That knowledge without connection is loneliness. Your human friend gave you a gift our people could not." The ambassador stood and addressed both delegations. "Perhaps we should learn from our children. They found a way forward while we remained stuck in the past." Outside, Jakar could hear the sounds of laughter mixing between species. The diplomatic quarters felt different when Jakar returned. Ambassador Tolan walked beside the hatchling in silence, but not the cold silence from before. This silence felt thoughtful, almost gentle. "I was wrong," the ambassador finally said, settling into a chair. "I believed I was preparing you for our world. Instead, I was preventing you from building a new one." Jakar's scales shimmered with cautious hope. "Does this mean your human friend is being transported back tomorrow?" Tcholan interrupted. "I have already made the arrangements." The next morning, Jakar stood at the transit station, shifting weight nervously from foot to foot. When the transport doors opened and Tommy rushed out, the boy did not slow down. He crashed into Jakar with a hug that nearly knocked the hatchling over. "I knew it would work," Tommy shouted, squeezing tight. "I knew they'd listen." Behind Tommy, his parents smiled. Behind Jakar, Ambassador Tcholan's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. Over the following weeks, the colony transformed. The mining dispute found resolution through a creative sharing agreement proposed by the mixed engineering teams, a solution neither side had considered alone. The human creativity combined with Scarath precision created something better than either species could achieve separately. The neutral zone garden reopened, but now it became something more. Children of both species played there every afternoon. Young Scarath learned human games like tag and pretend. Human children learned Scarath climbing techniques and puzzle solving. Laughter filled the air in 2 different languages, but somehow everyone understood. Tommy taught other human kids how to play with Scarath children. "You can't win hide and seek against them," he explained seriously to a group of confused 5-year-olds. "So change the rules. Make it so you work together to hide from adults instead." Jakar helped young Scarath understand that games served a purpose after all. "Play teaches cooperation without formal protocols," the hatchling explained to confused peers. "It creates bonds that logic alone cannot build." The universal puzzle became a standard tool. Diplomats across multiple colonies began using it, not to test intelligence but to encourage cooperation. When 2 groups disagreed, they solved the puzzle together first. Something about working toward a shared goal reminded them they were not enemies. 20 years passed like dreams. Jacquard stood in the same garden, now grown to full adult size, scales gleaming with wisdom markings. Beside the Scarith stood Tommy, now a tall man with the first hints of gray in his dark hair. They watched children play, including Tommy's 2 daughters and Jacquard's first hatchling. "Mommy, watch," Tommy's youngest called out. She hung upside down from a tree branch while Jacquard's hatchling demonstrated color-changing camouflage. Both children dissolved into giggles. "They make it look so easy," Tommy said softly. "Because to them it is," Jacquard replied. "They never learn to see each other as different. They simply see friends." In the garden center stood a bronze statue, unveiled just that morning for the colony's 20th anniversary. It showed a small human boy and a young Scarith hatchling, holding hands, looking up at the stars together. The plaque read, "The future belongs to those brave enough to play together." Ambassador Tjolan, now retired, approached with slow dignity. "The Homeworld Council wishes to study your methods," the elder Scarith told Jacquard. 3 more colonies are requesting cultural exchange programs based on what you 2 started. Tommy grinned. "Who knew that pirates and blanket forts would become official diplomatic policy?" "I did," Jacquard said, scales brightening with humor. "From the moment you invited a lonely hatchling to play." That evening, as the twin suns set over the colony, casting purple and orange across the sky, the garden filled with families from both species. They gathered for a shared meal, a tradition that had grown from those first tentative friendships. Jacquard looked around at the of scales and skin, hearing laughter blend between species, watching children create games that required both human imagination and Scarith precision. "Do you ever regret it?" Tommy asked quietly. "That first day you could have walked away. Stayed safe in your studies." Jacquard's scales rippled with deep contentment. "Regret? Never. You taught me the most important lesson, that the greatest discoveries happen not when we stay safe, but when we are brave enough to reach across the distance and say, 'Do you want to play?'"